Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today where we're going to be talking about mental health strategies for coping through these unprecedented COVID holidays. First, let me introduce our special guest, Ciana Gonzales, and she is a psychotherapist.
Thanks so much for having me.
And we're very, very glad. I'm very, very glad you're here. And it's so timely for a variety of reasons. So before I hand it over to Ciana to walk through some of her tips and things that we might want to put into practice leading into next week and New Year's, I want to spend, of course, just a little bit of time drawing some connection around what may or may not be so obvious to, all of us around how we, based on our illnesses or our medical conditions, how our choices might aggravate those conditions or can actually help to kind of heal them or keep them a little bit less painful, okay? So when we think about all of those autoimmune illnesses, which I know I've seen so many people now joining with exactly those autoimmune conditions that create that constant daily pain of the joint pain, the swelling. It's hard to get up every day to even function as a human being sometimes. And as we've talked about over the last few weeks, even those daily struggles can really make us feel hopeless. And then, of course, let's add on top of that some COVID. And it can really, really make us feel quite depressed. Let's be honest. So one connectivity before I hand it over to Ciana here is, again, we've talked about food a lot and how we all want to remove the trigger foods, which are the processed foods, artificial sweeteners, sugars, anything that's going to spike our blood is going to have an impact, of course, on the inflammation, but also has a direct impact on our central nervous system and, of course, our brain as well. And that's another reason why, as we enter the holiday season, I just want all of us to really lean in to not making poor food choices that are just going to exacerbate the problem. Okay, and I know that's so hard because the last week myself, I have been binging. I mean, again, I'm checking myself because this is why this is so timely on a personal level, because I'm finding that I'm backsliding into some emotional eating. And of course, just got my blood work on Friday and my numbers are really out of whack again, and it doesn't take much. But apart from the food choices, again, staying with that whole food choice, being mindful around, it may not always taste pleasurable, but we got to stay functional and deliberate around our eating to really help calm the nervous system. And again, as Ciana's going to touch on some of the other mental health aspects, but we really want to keep our energy as calm and soothing, for lack of a better word, as we can, so that we're not inflaming the current conditions that we have. Okay. And I would also say it's no accident that we've talked about food being a trigger to our inflammation and pain. Stress is a huge trigger to our mental health, and of course our food choices and our quality of life. And so with that, let me turn it over to Ciana, and she's just going to walk all of us through some of her key suggestions, and we'll learn a little bit more about her and her practice and just some great suggestions that I know she's teed up for us today, and take any live questions that you have as well. So Ciana, I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and to be able to offer these tips to everybody. I know that it has been such a challenging year for most, and of course, things are looking just a lot different this year, especially around the holidays. So I just wanted to be able to offer just some helpful tips that may just help us cope a little bit better with how things are looking this year. So the first thing I think, is just for us to be able to give ourselves that space to feel the feelings that come up, because it is such a challenging year. We're all feeling it. Some of us may feel a lot of disappointment, maybe around things just looking different. Maybe we're not able to be around certain family members this year. That may cause us to feel sad. Some of us might feel angry. The reality is that we're all experiencing a lot of loss, and part of that is just grieving. So grieving that loss and being mindful of the feelings that come up without judgment and with self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Another tip I have is focusing on what is in our control. Our minds have a really difficult time when it comes to us just feeling this loss of control in our lives. And unfortunately, with a pandemic, there's so much of that. So really being able to shift our focus to those things that we do have control over. One of those being our thoughts. Of course, we don't have control over all the thoughts that come up, but really being able to shift our focus to more helpful thoughts. So, for example, if maybe we're thinking, that this holiday season is going to be awful, things look so different, it's just really going to suck this year. Which may be.
Oh, how'd you know? That's what I was thinking.
I mean, I think we're all thinking that. I think it's, things just look so different this year, and it can be really difficult to not think that it may come up. What matters is what we do when that thought comes up. So instead of really focusing in on this thought, trying to shift our focus to a more helpful thought. So maybe, and it doesn't have to be completely the opposite. It's not going to be, this is going to be the best holiday season ever, because maybe that doesn't feel so true. But maybe just something a little bit more helpful. So maybe this holiday season may look a bit different, but I'm going to try to make the most of it. Or I'm going to still reach out to others, or I'm going to still keep certain traditions that I normally have.
If I can interject, because that is such a key point, especially, having children. For those of us that do have children, and I know I've been mourning a lot around what my childhood used to be like, and how not to be dramatic here, but I feel like it's just tragic what I witness our children going through. So I think that's a really great point you just touched on, because what you just said to me, I'm receiving kind of this, just be present, because it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole and then lose sight of your kids. Our children are watching us and kind of mirroring our mood and what we're doing or not doing.
Right. Totally. And I think it can be hard. It can be a hard thing to do, especially when we've got others depending on us, and these thoughts may come up. But doing our best to try to refocus. Another kind of strategy for that is, of course, like giving ourselves that space to feel some of those painful feelings or uncomfortable feelings, but also shifting toward a practice of gratitude, which I know, Andrea, I know that you mentioned that you have kids, so that could even be a helpful thing in teaching them to shift their focus, because we know that practicing gratitude tends to relieve some stress. People who practice gratitude experience less depression, maybe have more satisfying relationships. And so, if you are able to, even just finding some joy you have in the little things this year. So maybe it's not having a big feast with family, but maybe it could be even as small as I was able to go for a walk today, or I saw a really beautiful flower on my walk today. Just kind of the little things that I think during this time can go a long way.
Absolutely. Okay.
And kind of going along with that too, my next tip is to just kind of keep your body moving, whether that's through exercise, whether that's through an activity, I think we don't always put a lot of emphasis in that mind-body connection that we have. And Andrea, I know that goes great with what you do as well as a nutritionist. You know, what we're putting in our bodies, how we're treating our bodies, makes a big difference in how we feel emotionally and mentally. One thing it does is it keeps our energy levels up. We also get better sleep. We have better brain function and just overall better health, which of course at this moment in time is really essential and important.
Definitely.
So, you know, going for a walk, maybe practicing yoga, maybe trying a new sport, maybe tennis. You know, I know you're able to be socially distanced and in different sports. So, you know, whatever gets you moving. Another thing is getting really creative with enjoyable activities. So maybe early on this year, you had certain activities that you really enjoyed doing, but now things are looking a lot different. Obviously, we're socially distanced. We're trying to stay indoors probably as much as possible. Not around as many people. Um, you know, trying to stay safe. So the activities we're doing to you know, find joy in are just going to be a little bit different. So maybe that's taking a different route on your walk today. Maybe that's trying a new instrument. I found myself picking up some ukulele at the beginning of the quarantine, and I'm not very good, so I won't play it for you. But you know, just to get me doing something different, a little bit different, and
It's a
maybe
great,
learning to cook something different.
yes, great idea.
So really, just using that creative part of ourselves to find joy.
Yes.
Another thing is, and I mentioned it earlier too, is really trying to keep or modify or add to certain traditions that we already have for the holiday season. So I think for a lot of us, it probably doesn't feel so much like the holiday season. Um, but when that day comes of, you know, usually you're with family or you're with friends or you're doing something festive. Really, you know, if one thing you do is you have uh, maybe like a um, French toast or something, you know, the morning of Christmas, or maybe you won't be surrounded by as much family this year, but still trying to have that French toast, maybe doing like a Zoom call or something while you have your French toast, so that you're still trying to keep that holiday spirit.
That is probably the biggest thing that I had to reset my own mind to, is like, well, wait a minute, I can still bake the cookies. I can still, like last night, I found something, you know, last minute to go look at some lights, you know, socially distanced, whatever event. And again, my son doesn't know any different. So what I would have seen is like, oh my God, this is really bad. He doesn't know the difference. And he thought this was the best thing ever. So, you know, finding things that can still foster the feeling of the holidays and bring your kids joy, if nothing else, give them the joy that brings you, like, okay, mom win, you know, um,
Yeah,
it really made a difference. Get a little hot
and
cocoa, you know, at Starbucks or whatever, and drive around with some Christmas lights. We do that pretty much like 3 times a week now. It's ridiculous, but that's our thing.
I mean, I think it along that same vein. I mean, to go back to what I said earlier about just the little things.
Yeah.
Um, you know, maybe that's usually not the biggest thing in your holiday season, but you know, this holiday season, it feels much bigger.
Yeah.
And it keeps your morale up. It keeps your children's morale up. So I think that's part of really just what's going to get us through these holidays.
Totally agree.
And then another thing, I know that uh, one thing that tends to help us feel more in control of a situation that we may feel like we have a lack of control in is volunteering or donating to others. And I know right now there are so many people in need of food, of clothing, of um,
Such a
you
great,
know, really just anything. I think as human beings, we are wired to be altruistic, and so it gives us a sense of, it makes us feel good to be able to help others, and makes us feel good about ourselves.
great idea.
And my last one that I have, I think, is probably the biggest one, is seeking support for yourself. So whether, again, that's Zoom, whether that's reaching out to maybe an old friend that you haven't talked to in a long time, maybe you need some added support. Maybe you have you're not feeling like you have many others to really reach out to right now. There are so many support groups right now that are online. You don't need to be in person. As a matter of fact, I think probably most, if not all, are online. So really, you could even be, you can be in one part of the state, and this group is being run on at a completely another part of the state, um, which is great because you have more access to different groups. And same thing, if you feel like you would like to have a personal therapist. I know in most situations it's within the same state. I think there are certain circumstances where you may be able to see a therapist outside of your state if maybe you're someone who's maybe in school and then coming back, and so there are different options as far as that goes. And uh, I'm seeing clients as well. I'm a therapist located in Hermosa Beach. Right now, like most other therapists, I'm online. So just trying to keep everybody I see safe, trying to keep myself safe. Um, but with that, I am able to access other people throughout the state of California. So I know that Andrea will have my information, and I would love to uh, be able to provide that to you. And if you need other resources or
Wonderful.
support groups, you can always reach out to me too for any of that, and I'd be happy to help.
Excellent. So great, great tips, Sienna. And I'm hoping, that even hearing you reinforce a few that, there's always those that we know we should be doing, but we just don't put them into practice. So honestly, I think for me personally, and I would challenge any of you who are watching today to pick even just one thing that Sienna brought up today, and let's, pick whatever that was. And there's several great ideas. Pick one and really try to focus on practicing that. Give it, the next few days just to see what type of change it brings to your energy and your mood. And hopefully that carries in for the next few weeks to help get us through against what could have also always been just something a little bit more disappointing, but really shift the mental thoughts around what could be. And we're going to do the very best that we can to bring enjoyment, not only for ourselves, but for those that are around us. And I think that's, for me, the focusing on those things that are in my control is something that I'm personally going to really hold myself, accountable to as best as I can, because that's been my biggest area of weakness, because I can easily go right into the rat hole with the negativity. Again, I'll just turn on the news and it's game over at that point. So I really love those suggestions. And for, again, those that will be watching this either on the replay, we will, or are here with us live, I'll put Sienna's contact information in the comment box. Any other questions or comments that any of you have as you, again, catch the replay as well, definitely let me know. And you'll have, again, access to Sienna if that's another route of support that you'd like to pursue. So I think that there was a real benefit, again, having you here. Mental health is pretty much front and center because it is holistic health, and it's an aspect of our being that we have to pay attention to because it's all connected. And if we don't have our mental health right, obviously nothing else is going right. So really loved having you here. I'll definitely, if you would love to, I'd love to have you back at some point, and maybe we can talk about another key area of, again, holistic health, bringing in that mental health aspect again, and share some of your thoughts and wisdom with the rest of us as well.
I would love that. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
My pleasure. And again, thanks to all of you group members for joining today. And in the meantime, you know where to find me. And I look forward to speaking with all of you very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.